Hi everyone, and welcome to your daily horoscope and tarot reading. We have a really active and powerful sky where the sun, just freshly entered into the sign of Taurus, is providing a major energy shift, and we would also like to wish all Taurus natives a very happy solar return. The moon, the other luminary body, is also making some relevant celestial dances which can offer us today a very profound healing energy and also the clarity to look at our own healing. Now, before we get to that, I would just like to say that the predominant energy today is the sun forming a conversation of maximum tension with Saturn in Aquarius. Now, the Sun in Taurus, Taurus represents our values, it represents our worth, even self worth, it represents all the assets and acquisitions. So, in one word, both individually and collectively, Taurus is responsible for our own value systems. And when the main luminary body, the Sun, enters this part of the sky, it puts our attention, our emphasis on our finances, on our values, and for the individual, especially where the sign of Taurus is in their own personal charts. So the sun is illuminating this part of the sky, and it is revealing to us how unexpectedly, how suddenly our value systems and everything that we find beautiful, valuable, everything that we love changed at the start of this global crisis and at the start of this coronavirus. So, this is the very first glimpse of how inevitably our value systems are going to be changing and evolving. A very good example of this is just a couple of months ago, so to speak, designer items, designer jewelry, big brands, big names, big creations, so to speak, held a very profound value because everyone wanted to acquire them who had the possibilities, because this is a gesture where whatever you're wearing tells a story about who you are, your preferences, and your personality. So all of those items were quite valuable and appreciated by human collective. But after the global turmoil, after the outbreak of the coronavirus, the sun is actually illuminating our current values, what we hold as valuable in the present moment. So, all of those things which were really relevant just a couple of months ago are now suddenly not as important, and value is totally different in the present moment. And for example, those professionals who were really highly regarded, so to speak, just a couple of months ago, maybe the most powerful businessman, the most powerful financial analytics, the CEOs, the actors, the influencers. Now, those people had to surrender, had to give up a little bit of their power and a little bit of their worth, because right now, the human collective values doctors, healthcare professionals, and people, everyone else, every single individual who is contributing to fighting this crisis, who is investing their power, their strength, their individuality, their uniqueness, their skill, so to speak, in solving this crisis or helping people, humanitarian efforts. So, in the present moment, compassion, solidarity, awareness, wisdom, and an emotional strength to support other people is the new value. And the sun is simply highlighting all of this to us. It is highlighting that we have reached already a moment where we just cannot go back to the past normality, where whatever we held valuable, whatever we held as precious just a couple of months ago, is already a theme, a chapter of the past, which is closing. With or without our consent and our desire, this is what karma, this is what fate has done to our value systems. And since Uranus, the planet of revolution, which is upgrading our value systems over the next 7 years, we can see that this is one of its effects. This is how Uranus and Taurus manifested in our lives in this present era, because as we know, Uranus and Taurus also had a devastating effect on the world economy in the 1930s, and yes, it produced a lot of suffering, a lot of scarcity, poverty, but ultimately it gave birth to our modern society and our modern economic systems and financial systems, which right now we might take them for granted, but back then in the 30s, even the principles which govern our world today were highly futuristic. So this is how we're stepping into the future. The sun, just freshly entered into the sign of Taurus, is already forming a conversation of tension with Saturn in Aquarius. Now, Saturn in Aquarius represents the society, it represents the individual, it represents our interhuman connections, and of course, the limitations, all the restrictions, all the social distancing. Saturn is the planet of constriction, after all, so it is inviting us to take responsibility for our individuality, for our uniqueness, even for how the power games, even for how our lives and the rules which govern our lives affect us both individually and collectively. So the square between Saturn and the Sun is a really powerful grounding energy, and it invites us to look at how our lives are inevitably changing due to the restrictions, because it was the same restrictions which are causing us so much discomfort in the present moment, which were actually responsible for the change of our value systems, to awaken us back to reality, to ground us that it's not the designer bag or the designer watch or whatever which is important for our lives, but rather the food and everything that we need to survive, and we shouldn't actually value those people who just make a profit by sharing this and that, but rather those people in our lives who support us emotionally and who are there for us, and we are invited to value the humanitarianism activities within society, all those people who are trying to make a difference and who are consolidating, fortifying our interhuman connections. So all the restrictions of Saturn forced all of us individually, one way or another, to adapt, to create a new sense of normality for ourselves, to create new rules and regulations, new routines, new truths, so to speak. And it is all those new and ingenious and inventive and maybe for some people futuristic tendencies that they have woven into their lives, into their new normality, which are the values and the worth of the future generations, of how all of us are going to be living in the future, because Aquarius has much to do with the future, and Saturn there just simply tells us that we are responsible for our futures. We have to accept the role of the co-creator, because yes, on one hand karma in the universe is directing us, the divine intelligence is actually manifesting through us and creating something totally new, but we as individuals and as sovereign beings also have to contribute to that. So there is a great degree of saying, of influence and power we have over our futures, and that all depends on our values and what we hold as valuable, because what we love, what we are attracted towards, what we would like to experience is going to be where the future is leading us, because the future is based on love, not as much on what we hate or what we feel rejection towards. Yes, the rejection also has a powerful saying in it, because we wish to eliminate everything that doesn't serve us, everything that we do not wish to have in our lives. But still, it is the love which is the core, which is the Carl Jungian type of creative energy, the divine spark inside of us. So that is what we're building our futures on. Very soon, the sun is going to be meeting Uranus in the sky, especially with the new moon phenomenon taking place on the 23rd of the month. And that can be a very powerful moment when we have a glimpse of where 2021 is taking us, because the square between Saturn and Uranus is going to resume in 2021, and this new moon can give birth to a new beginning, maybe a new solution, maybe a new epiphany, maybe new ideologies which are going to help us create that future, which are going to serve us as support columns, as pylons on which we build our future upon. Now, usually, a new moon to manifest, the sphere of influence of a new moon is 6 months, but since it is so tightly conjunct to Uranus, this can be unexpected, it can be sudden, it can be really, really quick and chaotic, which can come as a surprise, a delight, but sometimes also an awkward moment where whatever is going to be birthed at that time of the new moon is definitely going to change the future and our value systems forever. So at that time, it may just enter our awareness that there is no going back to the past, to the ways of the past, to the values of the past, and our traditions, our rigid traditions, need to change because the reality that we live in the present moment can no longer support it. It's incompatible. So there is no other option, there is no other choice but to step into the future and abandon the past, abandon our fake sense of security, abandon our illusions, like I was talking about the designer items. Yes, they make our life beautiful, but the price may be not worth it. Now, the moon, the other luminary body, is also forming very powerful celestial conversations where it is in the sign of Aries and it's going to meet Chiron and dark moon Lilith in the sky, and it's going to receive a sextile from Saturn. Now, this is really powerful because Chiron is our healing. In the sign of Aries, it is healing us profoundly, it is healing our instincts, and this means that on one hand, we're healing our past, we're healing our traumas, we're healing our major dissatisfactions in life, but on the other hand, all of us collectively are healing humanity's, our ancestors, our human collective's past traumas, because a new beginning cannot be built on suffering. This brings to our awareness that our wounds, when all those times when we were wounded, when we were hurt, were really important moments in our own personal lives because they have given us a special sensitivity where we know profoundly what it's like to be wounded, what it's like to suffer, what it's like to have a very unfair life, and this makes us that much more compassionate, empathic, understanding towards other people. So whatever Chiron is doing in our lives is really important because it's opening us up to the suffering of other people and giving us the power to help, giving us the power to inspire them, to encourage them, to help them, because we have already been through our own personal hells, and that gave us the power to heal ourselves, to nourish ourselves, to be there for ourselves and not allow our wounds to turn us into the darkest expressions of ourselves, the Lilith, so to speak. So this is a really powerful celestial conversation which is turning all of us one way or another into healers, wounded healers, so to speak, the symbolism of Chiron, and the sextile with Saturn gives us the chance to take responsibility. It is telling us that we are responsible for our own healing and not other people and not the universe, not anything else, but it is us, the person who we are, the person who is embodying our spirit, so to speak. We are responsible for how we heal, and to which degree we consider ourselves to be victims of anything. It doesn't matter if it's another person or society or destiny. This is a really powerful, constructive healing energy, especially because the sextile of Saturn also represents that there is help out there when we are stuck, when we feel extremely lonely, when we feel that there is no support in our lives. Well, Saturn in Aquarius tells us that society, because society is suffering so much in the present moment, it is much more open to people who are suffering, and there is help out there. There are people who are dedicating their work and efforts to help and support people who are going through dark times, who are going through extreme turmoil. So this also highlights that this crisis, that all the restrictions also have a really beautiful effect on all of us, because they bring out our true sense of compassion and humanitarianism, where we invest our individuality and our unique skills, whatever makes us valuable as individuals, to help other people. So this is a really beautiful energy, and this is a really beautiful sextile, and completed by another set of sextiles. Mercury holds with Venus and Mars. This represents the power of internet, the power of interhuman connections, where everything that we share, everything we communicate, contributes that much more to the well-being of others, even if it's just inspirational energy. Now, the sextile Mercury receives from Venus and Mars are also really good for your own personal work on the internet, for business, for the flow of documents, official matters, communications. They also empower your instinctual intelligence, your gut feeling, so to speak, where you can make sudden and quick decisions effortlessly, where your inner intelligence basically guides you and tells you in a flash of a second what the right choice and what the bad choice is. And this is also beautiful energy for love and online dating, where your intellectual capacity, where your mind, who you are as an intellectual, is magnetic. It can help you attract all the right people into your life, maybe even love, maybe even romance. Yes, it is going to be playing out on the internet, so to speak, or in virtual reality, but still, if the connection is there, if the mental attraction to the mind of the other person is valid, well, then this can represent a really beautiful future relationship, where you'll get the chance to not just meet the mind of the other person, but also the body and their own psychology. Now let's get to the tarot reading part of this guidance, where the reading is opened by the Empress card. And the Empress is basically the representation of Venus in Taurus. So it has much to do with love, it has much to do with self-worth, it has much to do with your own attractions, may it be for another person, may it be for a job, for an activity, or anything else you're passionate about, or everything you might be holding as valuable. Now, this card represents that very many people all of a sudden just woke up to the truth. They woke up to the reality that for them in their own personal lives, love matters the most. And they also woke up to the truth that it has always been like this, even if they couldn't express it. Yes, some people were actually quite idealistic, they were very, very pure in the distant past, but since society or other people, or however your own destiny played out, didn't allow you to express yourself, it didn't allow you to share your love, to project your love, to project your inner beauty upon others. And this can be in a personal relationship, in a romantic relationship. It can be perfectly valid for artistic people, for creators, those who have really powerful creative energy. It can be true professionally, where you are really passionate about something, but because of bureaucracy, gatekeepers, and the modern structure of society, professionally, just didn't allow you the chance to step into your role. So it doesn't matter how this love was repressed, how this love had to be sometimes even violently contained within yourself, it still left you with a really bitter taste, so to speak. So because you couldn't express your love, because you couldn't express your creative energies, you just had to always live in compromises, it had a very negative effect on your self-worth, and this is the Four of Coins reversed. Yes, it doesn't mean that you weren't aware of your self-worth. It doesn't mean that you didn't have your logic. It doesn't mean that you didn't have your clear sight that you're a valuable person and you were blessed at birth with so many skills and talents, or a purity, or the capacity to just love and project love and beauty upon others. But it represents that if you weren't allowed to express it, if you weren't allowed to live like that, if you weren't allowed to just come out of your shell, well, then even if you believed in yourself, it didn't matter that much, because society forced you basically not to believe in yourself, not to have courage to express yourself. And this is what you're healing in the present moment, and this revelation, this epiphany, how very important love is in your life, and love is everything for you basically. This is the point where you don't even care about your own personal expectations. This is where you don't care about how love can be expressed in your future. All you care about is to just live in love. May it be passion for something, may it be a job, may it be a role, may it be romance, may it be just love for freedom, self-love. It doesn't matter what expression this have. You are definitely desiring with all your soul to live this in the future. And the Five of Coins reversed is a beautiful energy, because it tells you that you have been through so much turmoil, so much suffering, so much Dark Night of the Soul episodes in 2019, where all your traumas, where everything that restricted your love came to the surface, and you had to heal it, you had to purge it, you had to work with it. But even though you understood on a soul level that this is a karmic moment and you're purging and preparing yourself for something, you still had disappointing expectations attached, because you just thought that yes, you're healing and all that, but physically this will not going to change your life whatsoever, and socially nothing is going to change in your life because it's impossible. Well, what you have thought back then in 2019 is a totally different future right now, because you weren't expecting the unexpected turmoil, the funny twist of fate and events, because right now society, human collective as a whole, as in generalized, is actually in your shoes. Everyone on the planet, or most people on the planet, are actually living your old normality, and this is opening them up to the same healing, to the same epiphanies, to the same forces and karmic events which guided your life in 2019. So right now everyone is going through a purge, and this is going to massively change the world. It is going to massively change the future, because you're not the only living soul who all of a sudden found how important love, honesty, authenticity, empathy, gentleness is important for them. If very many other people just came to this realization, well, this already means that the world is inevitably going to be changing, and your disappointing expectations are turned 180-degree around, because only now are you awakened to the fact that, well, actually the future which is awaiting you does give you the opportunities that you so much desired. That all your healing work, every single moment of suffering in 2019 did make sense. This is the big picture, so everything makes so much sense, and all the suffering you went through back then is now a biggest blessing, because your mind, your heart, the wholeness of your being can already anticipate that this future is going to be a future which has a place for you, which has a place for your dreams, it has a place for your own value systems. So you're definitely going to be living whatever you prepared for in 2019. May it be an activity, passion, work, your role in the society and in the universe, or the romance or the love which you could never have the chance to experience. Because if you're not the only one who's going through this, that means that your soulmate or whoever needs to enter your life to give you that love and to receive your love is purifying. That person is being united and aligned with unconditional love, and their desires are basically getting tuned to your frequency, to the same frequency you operate on. And when those two frequencies are going to be one and the same, well, chances are you're going to meet, and a new alliance, new relationship is going to be formed. But even for those people who are not looking for romantic love, but for some kind of passion or just to embody their inner truth, which they love, so it's also based on love, it is perfectly valid for them as well, because those opportunities are going to be available in their lives, in their futures, just the same. Now the reading is closed by the Eon, the Judgment, and the Three of Swords. And this represents that all of us individually are basically healing the collective trauma of humankind, of the past, the mistakes of our ancestors, all the suffering that has plagued society, all the injustice. And this healing does take some time, but chances are by the 21st of December 2020, the moment when the great conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn is going to be taking place in the sign of Aquarius, a great conjunction is a really important moment in astrology because it sets the tone of the next 20-year cycle. So since it's taking place in the Aries sign of Aquarius, the sign of the future, the sign of humanitarianism, the sign of the individual, it is going to be inviting us to step into a totally new era where our intellect, where the harmony, the beauty, the passions of our intellectual spheres, of our minds, of our mental creative energies are going to be the value of the future. Our intellect, our minds, our intellectual work and capacity are going to be what the future actually needs. So this is already showing us that the next 20 years of our lives are going to be totally different. This is the window of opportunity you and so very many people like you have been waiting for. May it be for love, for you to find the soul partner of your dreams, and together you can experience a magical future based on love, or may it be embodying your true role or whatever you are passionate about, whatever you love. There's your opportunity. Yes, the past absolutely had all doors closed, it restricted you, it didn't allow you to enjoy the freedom you deserved, but this is where the future can be totally different, because all of the past great conjunctions of the past 200 years took place mostly in earth signs. So that means material energy, that means physical reality, it means down to earth stuff and business. And it also means that the shadow expression of earth energy, the greed, the materialism, the survival instinct, the survival mentality, so to speak, played a very big role. But this is where it ends, and this is where air energy is going to be the tone of the future 100 years. So this is where intellect, the mind, who we are mentally is going to be playing a much greater role, and a healed, a harmonious, an equitable mental sphere can give way to love, can give way to true value. It can give way for spirituality, for science, for everything to coexist in peace and perfect harmony. And if we just look at the deeper symbolism of what Aquarius is, how it manifested. Well, basically, Aquarius is the internet. The internet is humanity's manifested collective consciousness. Just 50, let's say 100 years ago, the internet was totally sci fi. It was totally incomprehensible. It was just a fantasy. It was something we desired, but at that time it was like magic. It was not compatible with physical reality. But here we are now, where it's not just a futuristic technology, where it's just part of everyday life, and something which was once miraculous, sci fi, is suddenly here in our lives and we can take it for granted. And it played a massive role how our communities, how our human collective, how our society evolved, and it gave us the chance to quantum leap. So just think of the 90s, how life used to be in the 90s and how life is right now, and many advancements, many miraculous solutions in our everyday lives are due to the internet. So this is the future we're stepping into. This is the power, the magic of it, of the air element of Aquarius. So this kind of future, which is promised to us by the Eon card, by the Judgment card, the meeting of Jupiter and Saturn, is definitely one where our dreams can become physical reality, where our deepest and most pure fantasies can all of a sudden be played out and be enacted in real life. And if it's love and romance and that ideal partner, that soulmate connection that you're looking for, well, then this can give you a very empowering and encouraging glimpse of the future, a future where you're already living your heart's deep desire. Well, thank you so much for listening. Wish everyone a blessed and safe day. Bye for now.